On today's Locked On Giants podcast, we're sifting through the New York Giants draft rumors by taking a look at the state of the roster as it currently stands with 2 weeks to go before the Giants go on the clock. That's coming your way next here on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name's Patricia Traina, credential member of the New York Giants media for Locked On, as well as for Giants Country over on the Fan Nation Network, part of SI.com. And happy Friday, everybody. We made it to the end of another week, 2 more weeks to go before the big D, the draft. Cannot wait. And of course, I want to send a special welcome to my Blue Crew community members, my everydayers, my newcomers. If you're new to the program, welcome. And of course, everybody in between, you're all appreciated and loved by yours truly. Thank you for spending part of your day here with us at the Locked On Giants podcast. And please, if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Click that little notification bell so that you are notified every time I post a new video. And like the video if you would. It would help us tremendously. And on today's Locked On Giants podcast, we're going to sift through some of these draft rumors that have been circling around the Giants. And I think the way to start off is let's take a look at how all the free agency activity up to this point has set this team up for the draft, the directions that they might need to go. And I'm not just talking the first round, I'm talking throughout the entire draft. So we'll start off with that. Then we're going to talk about an area of the team that's really not getting a whole lot of mention with regards to draft help. And I really think it needs to be talked about a little bit more. So we'll talk about that in segment 2. And then in segment 3, QB or not to QB, what are they going to do? The Giants need a quarterback, right? Well, you would think so. But do they trade up? Do they stick and pick? Do they trade down? Do they go to the second round? We're going to take a look at some of those scenarios. And I'm going to try and give you some additional information, some stuff that's been floating around out there, and just try and come to a conclusion. So that is our agenda for today's Locked On Giants podcast. Again, welcome on in to everybody, and thank you. It's good to see y'all, and let's get into it. So free agency, ladies and gentlemen, set up this draft. And it's very interesting. If you look at what General Manager Joe Schoen did in setting up this roster, he went heavy on the offensive line, obviously. You know, that was an area that absolutely needed a lot of attention and a lot of love. He got himself a veteran backup quarterback in Drew Lock, which we all knew was going to happen. He got himself an edge rusher in Brian Burns, a trade that he made with the Carolina Panthers, something that they needed to do because, quite honestly, you know, you think of premium positions in the draft, you think of, you know, a left tackle, you think of an edge rusher, you think of a cornerback, you think of a quarterback. So, you know, you can't address all your needs early on in the draft, especially your premium needs. So that was a smart move by by Joe Schoen in getting Brian Burns via trade. The defensive secondary didn't really touch on that too much. Tight end, they added a bunch of blocking tight ends, you know, as they wait for Darren Waller to make up his mind as to what he's going to do with his career. And I've got a feeling, folks, he's not coming back, by the way. That's just my gut feeling. I don't think he's coming back, but we could talk about that another time. So really, you look at what the Giants have done, and you can make the case that they have set themselves up to go in any number of directions. But to me, there are obviously glaring needs that just are screaming for the Giants to address in this draft and early in the draft. Wide receiver 1, for example. You know, the Giants really didn't add a receiver 1. The only receiver I believe they added was Isaiah McKenzie. They brought back Isaiah Hodgins, who's really not a wide receiver one. I'm curious to see if he even makes the roster, given what the Giants might be looking to do at the receiver position. They added to the running back group with Devin Singletary. The Giants, of course, going to more of a committee approach at that position. So, overall, I think what Joe Shane tried to do, in addition to addressing some of the weak areas of the team, is he sought to give himself flexibility in this draft. Now, did he do a good job in doing that? In some positions, yes. Yes, you could say that. As I mentioned, the edge rusher spot, well, I believe you can never have too many edge rushers. He kind of, by acquiring Brian Burns, now that's not as pressing a need as it was prior to the start of free agency. Running back, by acquiring Devin Singletary, not as pressing a need as it might have been, after losing Saquon Barkley. Could they use more depth there? I suppose, but it's not, oh my God, you've got to come out of this draft with another running back. Tight end, again, I am not so sure that Darren Waller returns. And if he doesn't return, which I believe is the case, I think he's going to be a post-June 1st transaction. If he doesn't return, you might want to get another pass-catching tight end in there. Daniel Bellinger, of course, can do it, but you probably want to get somebody who's maybe a little bit more athletic. And the Giants looking at tight ends for possible selection later on in the draft. So, that's how it stacks up on the offensive side. On the defensive side, obviously, they've got some work to do over there. Brian Burns, I mentioned, they've added some defensive line depth. They just signed Jordan Phillips. As a matter of fact, before I recorded this, so on Thursday, that would have been, they signed Jordan Phillips, who played for Miami, the Bills. What else is new? And I think there was one other team. I want to say Baltimore was the other team he played for. But yeah, the Giants, they've set themselves up pretty good for this draft. And if you look at needs, specific needs, as opposed to value, you can pretty much guess where the Giants are going to go with their draft picks. Now, obviously, they have to have the right value there. You can't draft for need. You can't say, okay, we got to get a quarterback. We got to get, a receiver one. We got to get an interior defensive lineman. The value needs to be there. But if it comes down to, the Giants having a cluster of grades that are all very close together, that's where need wins out. So Joe Shane, in my opinion, did a pretty good job setting this team up for the draft. Still some work to be done with the draft. The Giants only have 6 picks. So, where do they need to spend those 6 picks? Well, we know some of the positions, but coming up after this, we'll talk about some of the other positions that really aren't getting talked about enough, but really need to be. So don't go anywhere. Hey, Giant fans, passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. And with all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. So go on and keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. I'm your host, Patricia Traina, and coming up on the Locked On Giants podcast, Dane Brugler of The Athletic, the author of the draft guide that is known as The Beast. He will join me here on the podcast. That'll be Monday's show. Well, I'll actually release that podcast probably on Sunday so you can get a head start on that. But Dane's going to come on the program with me and we're going to talk about the draft. What else? I mean, Dane is as good as they come. And, as I've been doing all week long, I've been trying to get different draft analysts to come on the program to give different perspectives on the prospects, what the Giants might do, and so forth. So that's going to be Monday's show. And then next week's a very busy week for Giants content. So on Monday, we're going to hear from Coach Brian Dable, as well as some selected players, as well as the coordinators. Okay, so there's going to be a bunch of video calls that the Giants will be doing with the media on Monday. So there should be plenty to talk about. And I will, of course, do a show devoted to what they have to say. And who knows, maybe I'll get 2 shows out of it. I don't know. But so that's coming up. So that would be Monday. That would be for Tuesday's show, but I'll probably get that show out to you on Monday. And then later on in the week, Thursday, General Manager Joe Shane addresses the media for his annual draft preview presser, or the misinformation session, as we call it in the media. So Joe Shane will be talking to the media, and I will get a show out to you as quickly as I can after that. So loads coming up here on the Locked On Giants podcast this coming week, as we cruise right into the draft and we find out what the Giants have in store for us, what they're thinking, who they like, who they're able to get, whether they trade up, whether they trade down. All those questions are going to be answered. And I don't know about you guys, but I am sick of mock drafts. I am sick of the speculation, the misinformation. I want answers, as I'm sure you guys do. So, right now, all we can do, obviously, is we could just kind of use our logic, if you will, and trying to figure out what makes sense and what doesn't. So anyway, let's talk about the Giants' 6 picks and how they might allocate them. Now, this is kind of interesting because every year you think, oh, the Giants need help on offense, and that's where they should devote most of their resources to. But once again, that's not the case this year. So we know quarterback is a need. All right. Now, I know some of you out there are very pro Daniel Jones, and you're saying the Giants don't need a quarterback, Pat. They've got other needs. They should spend draft picks on other needs. Folks, the Giants need a quarterback. Daniel Jones's injury history. I am here to tell you, and this is not speculation. This is not me throwing a dart at a dartboard blindfolded. The Giants are concerned about Daniel Jones's injury history. 2 neck injuries in 3 years. That's a concern. The ACL, which although he is making progress, although he is expected to recover from that, ACL injuries can take up to 2 years to fully recover from. And quite honestly, what has Daniel Jones, based his game on for, the better part of his career? His athleticism. So how well is he going to be, as far as a runner goes? So yes, folks, quarterback is a concern. Quarterback is something that, I would be shocked if the Giants don't draft. I'm not saying it's going to be the first round. I'm not saying what round it's going to be. I'm saying it's going to be addressed. It's got to be. I mean, logic dictates it. All the signs are there. And I'm telling you that there are concerns. Joe Shane has said it, that, they take into consideration Daniel Jones's injury history. So quarterback is very much a concern. So let's get that out of the way right here and now. Okay, we've talked about wide receiver 1. Now, there are some people who feel, okay, well, you know what? The Giants have a pretty good receiver room. Maybe if they upgrade the quarterback, things will be a little bit better. I don't know if I agree with that. I do agree that they have a good receiver room. I think Darius Slayton, Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt, they're all good receivers. Is there a number 1 amongst them? No. Is there a guy who can, create headaches for opposing defenses and warrant double coverage on a consistent basis? Probably not. Get a number 1 receiver in here. Last year, if you remember, I banged the drum for a center because Daniel Jones had gone through multiple centers in his career. I'm banging the drum for a number 1 receiver. I think the Giants have got to get that. I think that will make such a big difference for this offense. Obviously, it'll open things up for, the Slaytons and the Hyatts and the Robinsons of the team. It'll take some of the onus off the tight ends. I mentioned Darren Waller and how I don't think he's going to be back. Well, people will say, well, if he's not back, now tight end becomes a need. Yeah, but if you get a number one receiver and this class is loaded with guys who can maybe be your number one receiver, that might offset the need for getting a tight end. And if you offset that need, maybe you can defer getting a tight end till, maybe later in the draft or maybe even next year if you wanted to. So that's something that I think the Giants are going to want to address. Now, I've mentioned in the past that I believe that the Giants should also look to get an offensive tackle to develop, but that might be something that they look to do, later on in the draft, or maybe as an undrafted free agent, pick somebody up, because this is a deep class for offensive tackles. And there are going to be guys that in ordinary years might go, in the 4th, 5th round that may not get drafted at all. So I do think that that's going to be on the agenda as well. But the one unit, and I could see this happening for the Giants draft. Again, they have 6 picks as of now, depending on, what trades they may or may not make. The Giants have got to put a lot of those picks towards defense. It's just, we talked about how the free agency activity set up the draft. Defense needs some more assets. And let's just run down the list. Defensive line. All right. Yes, they just signed Jordan Phillips to the group. He's not in the same category, though, I think, as a Leonard Williams. So, it gives them veteran depth because they lost Ashawn Robinson. So, yes, that's veteran depth for them. But I'd like to see the Giants get a legitimate guy to pair up with Dexter Lawrence for the next several years and form that 1-2 punch that they kind of lost when they traded away Leonard Williams. So I do think interior defensive line is a very big need, and under the radar need, but still a big need all the same. Cornerback 2. Can we all agree that the Giants probably don't have cornerback 2 on the roster? Was it Trey Hawkins? I don't know about that. Is it Aaron Robinson, who can't seem to stay healthy? I don't know. Cordell Flott, is he better off in the slot maybe? Possibly. Nick McLeod, do you really want to take him off of special teams when he's been so good for you there? Do they have a CB2? I don't think they do. And I think they need to get one. And I think they realize they need to get one as well. So I do expect the Giants to address cornerback and maybe look to get a cornerback too. And I can see them maybe even addressing cornerback within the first 3 picks. All right. Safety. Yes, they signed Jalen Mills. I believe Jalen Mills is signed to a 1-year deal. But really, you have Jason Pinnock. You have Dane Belton. Now you've got Jalen Mills. And who else you got? All right. So I would feel a little bit better if they added to that safety group. And I think they will there as well. Maybe not a day 1, maybe not a day 2 pick, but maybe an early day 3 pick makes sense for them. And then here's a sneaky need. I think the Giants really need to consider adding another inside linebacker. Now, yes, they just re-signed Isaiah Simmons to a 1-year deal. Yes, Isaiah Simmons can, play that pseudo linebacker / safety role. He can play coverage for you. But, I look at what the Giants have at inside linebacker. They have Bobby Okereke, who could basically do it all, which is why he's on the field for every down. And then there's everybody else. So I would like to see them get an inside linebacker who can not only wrap up and be stout against the run and have that sideline to sideline range, but who can also be efficient in coverage. I don't think they have a second guy like that on the roster. I really don't. And no, I don't think it's Isaiah Simmons, folks. So Isaiah Simmons is a good, spot, sub package type guy, but I just don't think he's, a Bobby Okereke light, if we're being honest here. So that's definitely a sneaky need. So bottom line, 6 picks as of now. Giants may or may not add to that cash. I don't know, but I could easily see this draft being heavily slanted towards the defense. You got a new defensive coordinator. He's probably going to want different guys to do different roles that vary from what Wink Martindale wanted and did. So yeah, I think this could potentially be, if I had to take a guess, I could see it being a 2-4 split in favor of the defense as far as how the 6 picks are allocated. So, again, it's 2 weeks out. We'll see if that's how the Giants are thinking. Value needs to be there, obviously, but that's how I see it kind of shaping up. So, that being said, there's a lot of rumors out there about what the Giants will or won't do when it comes to quarterback. So, will they trade up? Will they stay put? Will they trade down? We're going to sort through some of those rumors and what makes sense and what doesn't right after this. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. And hey, don't forget, folks, now that we are entering the stretch run before the draft, if you have not checked out our Blue Crew community, please do so. Information is in the show notes. Basically, what Blue Crew community is, it's an exclusive group of Locked On Giants listeners with whom I communicate. I try to communicate with them every day, and we do special videos and stuff. So, for example, we had a Blue Crew community mock draft consisting of the members who participated in the mock draft. So I'm going to do a special video on that for them. We do a mailbag. I do the mailbag weekly during the season. And I think I try to do it at least once a month in the off season. And I'm, also texting them, when I hear breaking news or if I have, something that I've uncovered in the research. So there's a lot of stuff you could get as a member of the Blue Crew community. And like I said, the information is in the show notes. It's a free 14-day trial. Try it out. If you like it, do nothing. And then it's $4.99 a month. If you don't like it, all you have to do is opt out before your trial period ends and you will owe nothing. So it's pretty simple. Check it out. And for those of you, who don't have access to the show notes, the URL is joinsubtext.com/LockedOnNYGiants. So check that out. All right, let's talk about quarterbacks and all these rumors that are floating around. Now, in the last few days, there's been a few reports saying that the Giants like Drake May, that they will do what it takes to get Drake May. Then I have seen rumors about the Giants potentially trading down in the draft to get more picks. And then, oh, by the way, maybe they use some of those picks to trade back up into the bottom of the draft to get their quarterback. I have seen rumors about the Giants waiting to day 2, to the second round, where I believe they picked 47 and maybe looking to move up from 47 back into the first round to get their quarterback. And then I've seen rumors where the Giants just stick at 6 and make the pick. So what makes sense? What will the Giants do? Well, here's the problem, folks. I don't think the Giants even know just yet what they're going to do. I think they've run through multiple scenarios. If this happens, we'll do this. If that happens, we'll do that. But look, if you're talking about a trade, obviously you need a trade partner. Okay, you can't just say, oh, the Giants should trade up to, the 4th spot and get their quarterback. You've got to know that, the Arizona Cardinals, who are in the 4th spot, are willing to trade back. And what is their price range? And I don't know, I'm sure that, there's been some discussion done, but I'm not sure if there's anything that has been finalized just yet, because you've got to see how the draft board falls. If you're the Cardinals or any team drafting in front of the Giants, you're not going to sit there and say, okay, we want X, Y, and Z, and we've got a deal. And then all of a sudden, a player that you want, or you get a better deal, from another team looking to trade up, and now you got to renege on your deal. So nothing's ever really finalized until draft weekend. Or I should say, rarely is it finalized until draft weekend. So let's talk about some of these scenarios. Will the Giants trade up? It has been said that if they fall in full love with a quarterback, they will move heaven and earth to get him. I still doubt that. And here's why I doubt that. They only have 6 picks. They have multiple needs, as I've mentioned before. The talent level on the whole, I've talked to a few scouts off the record, not off the record, I mean offline from the podcast about, how this draft class as a whole stacks up. And basically, it's top heavy. You could get some solid potential starters and depth pieces through 4 rounds, and then after that, it kind of tapers off a little bit. So if you're the Giants, do you really want to be trading away assets? Do you want to dip into your assets next year, which they would probably have to do in order to trade up? I just don't know that that makes sense. I really don't. And I would be surprised if the Giants trade up. Not saying that it can't happen or it won't happen. I just don't think it makes sense. Now, if it does happen, obviously we'll break it down and we'll see, but I just don't see it making sense. Now, it's been rumored that Drake May is the guy that they like and that Drake May might be there. Well, if Drake May starts to slide down the board, here's where I could maybe see a scenario where the Giants might want to consider trading up. And that is if Minnesota or Denver likes Drake May and they are prepared to move heaven and earth to get him. So, I think Minnesota, with their 2 first-round draft picks to offer a team, they're the biggest threat, as I see it, to the Giants. If the Giants wanted to move up or to get a quarterback, I could see Minnesota very easily trying to jump the Giants. All right. Now, what about Jane Daniels? Jane Daniels is another quarterback the Giants reportedly like. But you know what? The Patriots are also reportedly very enamored with Jane Daniels. So really, I think the first 3 draft picks, if they're all quarterbacks, I suspect that's going to eliminate the possibility of the Giants drafting up. I don't think if I'm the Giants, I'd trade up to get J.J. McCarthy or Michael Penix or even a Bo Nix. Not at that spot. Maybe if you're talking second round to get into the bottom of the first round, then it makes sense. I don't think I move up from 6 to, or try to move from 6 to 4 to do that. All right. Now, what about just staying put and taking a pick there, a stick and pick, as we call it? That's what I see as making the most sense. If you're the Giants and you see the quarterbacks flying off the board, take one of those top receivers. If you could get a Malik Neighbors or a Roma Dunze, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? And, people will say, well, what about trading down and picking up more draft assets? Yeah, the team has a bunch of needs, as I mentioned. You're not going to fill all those needs in one draft. It just doesn't happen. I think, again, if I'm the Giants, I go for a receiver. I get a receiver 1 because I think that receiver 1 is going to help whoever the quarterback is. It's going to help the offense. If that offense wants to open things up and be explosive, a big play offense, get a guy who can contribute in that regard to help open things up underneath for the rest of them. Now, some of you have asked me, well, what about the Giants trading down and maybe going with a Brock Bowers? I don't think that would happen. I'd be surprised if the Giants were to do that. What I still say makes the most sense is the Giants stay at 6, and then they look to trade from the second round back into the beginning of the bottom of the first round and get your quarterback. Because as I've been saying all along, you get your receiver 1 and your rookie quarterback on first round draft pick contracts, which carry the option year. And also to trade from the second round back into the bottom of the first round is probably going to be a lot cheaper than if you try to trade from 6 up to 3 or 4 or 5. So I just think that's what the Giants, if the opportunity is there, that's what's going to make the most sense for them. That's what I see happening. I know if we have the live stream next week, and I'm hoping we do have the live stream with Tana and Bad Dog, I'm sure Tana's going to ask me, are you still thinking, what are you thinking for first round? Folks, right now, until such time that I get evidence to the contrary, I think it's a receiver. I think it's going to be a stick and pick. I think that makes too much sense. But, look, Joe Shane has shown that he's not afraid to draft and be bold and trade up and move around the board. I just don't know about the assets and if he has enough assets to do it. And also, does he want to really deplete next year's assets when there's going to be some other needs that you're going to need to address? You want to start the trajectory upward with this roster. So I just, I think he'll be aggressive, but not crazy aggressive is what I'm getting at. So I can't wait to see how it unfolds. Like I said, I'm sick of the mock drafts. I'm sick of all the speculation, the rumors. It's like this guy has this guy has this rumor contradicting it. It's just been all over the place. So look, let's fast forward. Let's get to the draft and let's start breaking down what they do and whether it makes sense. And of course, we'll do that when the time comes here on the Locked On Giants podcast. So that's going to do it for us here on the Locked On Giants podcast. As always, thank you for spending part of your day with us. Don't forget, tune in next week. Again, Dane Brugler will be the Monday show, which I will release on Sunday. Joe Shane is going to be Thursday into Friday. He's talking on Thursday. We're going to hear from the players and the coaches and the coordinators. All that's going to be on Monday. So make sure you're following me on social media, whether you're following me on X, formerly known as Twitter, or on Threads or on Instagram. I'm going to have all that for you, as well as some thoughts here on the Locked On Giants podcast. So until then, everybody, have a great weekend. I will see you next week.